Hey, Brent, can you hear me?
Hi, Darren.
Hey, how's your day going aside from having to do media?
I'm so excited to be here with you, man. I'm pumped.
Likewise, thank you for taking the time. And Planet Zero is the latest record, and it's admirably produced by your bass player. Now,
Yep.
he's got a great studio setup, but did it take convincing to go, hey, Eric's going to produce the record, or did you know outright, hey, we want to do it with Eric at the helm?
It had been building up over time throughout the trajectory of the band and the music that we were releasing. Eric was stepping up to the forefront, not only as a songwriter, but also he started to do productions, and we started working with him in his studio in South Carolina, which is actually where I am right now. I just got here last night. But so he had done the production on Diamond Eyes, and that was kind of the first visual, and as far as the audio is concerned, for myself, watching what he could do. And then we moved into his next production was Cut the Cord, off Threat to Survival. So moving into the album Attention, and we'll get to Planet Zero, but ultimately his first full-length record was Attention. And we just went to him and said, you're ready for the captain chair. You're ready to be at the helm. The interesting thing about Attention was because it was his first record, full-length record, as the producer, the engineer, and the mixer alongside Doug McKean, that was such a joy. That entire record was such an amazing experience for everybody involved. And when it comes to Planet Zero, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? And he just... and there's a difference with Eric, because Eric he's mixing, he's recording, he's taking a step back as the producer and really understands how to work with bands. It just so happens that he happens to be in the band. But not everybody can do that. Like, it's not something that you learn overnight, how to work with different egos, how to work with different styles, but we're all there for the greater good of the project. And of all the producers that I've worked with, he is by far my favorite.
You've worked some heavy hitter producer scenarios, Rick Beato,
Bob
Marlette, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a lot coming
Rob
from
Cavallo, Desmond Child, a lot.
Well, you never know with the bass player at the helm if you're going to get an over-bassed album, or you're going to get like 5150 by Van Halen, or, a Metallica album where there's no bass. So congratulations on having the correct amount of bass on this record.
You know what's interesting about that, particularly for Planet Zero, he really, when it came to the bass, the great thing about him as a bass player too is he's probably a bass player last. Like, he loves playing bass on stage and things like that, but he's multifaceted. The guy has perfect pitch. A lot of that has to do with a mother that was a vocal instructor and a piano teacher growing up. But on top of that too is he plays multiple instruments. Right. And he also has an insane singing voice. And he's just very eclectic. His palette is very vast. So yeah, I mean, working with him and learning from him on a daily basis, when it comes to the bass guitar for this record, he actually purposely, he set it more in the frequency of the guitars. So like when he was doing the bass, like he put a lot of distortion on stuff, or he would kind of carve certain things out in the mid-range. If you listen to the record, it has way more of an attack as far as just sonically. Everything on Planet Zero is like pushed to the front. There's not a lot of vocal effects on a lot of the songs. There's not a ton of layering with the guitar work and things of that nature. It's very raw. And the other thing that he did with Barry and Zach on the record was he made everybody play through the songs. So
I saw in the press release, no loops. You guys actually did it the old school way over those 18 weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, we're using, some sophisticated equipment in regards to synthesizers and certain techniques that we're doing and what have you. But a lot of the loops that you hear were created in the studio, like with grabbing, just different inanimate objects or what have you. Like he was really customizing everything where you weren't going into a plug-in or a program and just picking stuff out of there. He really wanted it to have a very organic feel. And the way he looked at it was, if we create it, then it doesn't exist somewhere else. It's actually ours.
Well said. Well, this is a compliment. There's no backhanded part as a warning coming to this.
Bring it on.
Okay, Shinedown's an arena band. Not many bands get to be an arena band, and this upcoming tour is some very big halls. And at this point in your career, theoretically, if you were doing a 15-song set, all 15 of those songs could potentially be songs that were on the radio or that charted in some form. So Planet Zero is a new record. When the people come to see you on these upcoming dates, around how many songs for Planet Zero are they going to get?
Right now, they should get probably 4, right around 4. Here's the thing. I am never going to get used to the fact that in present company right now, at this point in time, we are the band in the United States on the Billboard mainstream rock chart that holds the most #1s on that chart in the 39-year history of the chart. One of the things that's really fun about that is this next tour that we're getting ready to do with our friends in 3 Days Grace. We're the 2 bands that hold the most #1s on the chart as well. And we were like, if we were ever going to do it, if we were going to do it, let's do it now together so we can go out there. It's a night of #1s. But when you are putting a set list together, you have to pull from every record, and you have to do your best to make sure that the audience is going to get everything that they wanted to the best of your ability. Our set right now is about 20 songs. It's a 2-hour show. And we try to pull from every record. But there's going to be moments where you're not able to do that all the time. And we have 19 songs on rock radio, and we're getting ready to release our single we're crossing into other formats. We're getting ready to release a song called A Symptom of Being Human to Top 40 and Hot AC Radio. That will be our 32nd single as a band, 32 singles.
And sorry to cut you off, that doesn't include the Smith and Myers side band stuff that's charted as well. Okay.
Nope.
So another compliment on that compliment. Are you okay with that?
I'm humbled. So yeah, thank you.
Okay.
But I gotta make a really big, a point to this. That's because of the fan base. Right. That's because of the relationship going back 20 years with terrestrial radio. Obviously we're in modern day 2023. The exposure for music and the consumption of music, it's instantaneous. I think it's something like 400,000 new songs a week, 100,000, 100 to 120,000 songs in some circles a day that are released. That's mind-boggling. But the thing is we are constantly evolving, and we've always looked at age as just a number. And our fan base has always allowed us to evolve and to grow. We try to not make the same record over and over again. We do our best to not write the same song twice.
Sure. Is this the 7th album that you've done on Atlantic?
Yes.
Okay. How many bands stick around at the same label for 7 albums? So that's a rarity unto itself. Did you know outright when you're making this record that it was going to be for Atlantic?
Yeah, 100%. Here's the thing about the relationship between Shinedown and Atlantic Records. It's very, in a way, it's quite Shakespearean. That's the only way I know how to say it. There's definitely a romance there and a friendship, and they are family. It is not the norm in modern day for an artist of any genre of music to be on their record label for 2 decades plus and still continuing to release records together. So a lot of that I give credit to Craig Cowman and Julie Greenwald at Atlantic Records, because they've been there from day one. And I give a lot of credit to Steve Robertson, who has been the A&R for Shinedown from day one. And, you know, the interesting thing is on this record, we're working with Elektra Records promotion staff on this album. So it's crazy to actually be working with two labels at the same time. But at the end of the day, it's all under Warner Music Group, which is WEA, which stands for Warner Elektra Atlantic. So those companies work together, and it really is a foundation. But I tell people this, there was always an understanding from the get-go. And I got to say something else too, having the same management for the last 2 decades as well. Bill McGathy's been the manager from day one and into Good Entertainment. But the reality of that is people need to understand that it's called the music business for a reason. And in this industry, it's very challenging. It's very competitive, but you have to stick to your guns. And the one thing that Atlantic has always allowed us to do as a band is they've never put a clock on us in the studio. And they've always said to us, you turn it in when you're ready. And they trust us that when we do come in with it, that it is ready. But even in the past, you know, if it's not been 100% where they needed it to be, or they felt like we needed to continue writing, or we're not all the way there, 90% of the time when they would have us go back in, it was the right call. So there's a very real artistic relationship together, but there's also a very real respect that, yo, it's still a business.
Right. I think the only other band that I can think of besides Shinedown that had that long relationship with the same label and same management company is ZZ Top. Otherwise, everyone
I'm
just
not familiar.
I think ZZ Top 40 years with the same manager and 40 years on RCA or something like that.
That's rad though, man. I love hearing stuff like that.
Right. So kudos to you on the loyalty and all that involved. So what is life like for you outside of music? When I asked that, I said that Shinedown's one of those about the music kind of bands. Like, we don't know if you own a racing car team or anything like that. We don't know anything about Brent besides, yep, he gets up there, he plays, he has hit songs, he tours, he goes home. Is that by design that you're kind of mysterious?
I don't know if it's by design. It's just who I am. I often will tell people that will say to me, do you know you're a rock star? And I go, I don't necessarily know how to answer that question, because if I am a rock star, or what I would consider a performer, I am from my set time. So the other 20 hours out of the day, what you see right now is exactly who I am. And I spend a lot of time now, as much as I can, with my son, who just turned 15 in December of last year. And he's got a lot of things are going on in his life right now, and I need to be there with him. But he also understands that I have to be gone also. That's why I'm very thankful that we have technology like FaceTime, because he's Generation Z, and they don't want to text and they don't want to talk on the phone. They want to FaceTime, which I absolutely love. They like to look at each other. But I appreciate that. For me, you know, I look at the rock star element as the set time for when I'm performing. As soon as I walk on stage, there is a switch that goes off because I'm there to perform. And then when I walk off the stage, I come back to reality. I think that that's one of the reasons why mentally I've been able to do this at the level that I'm doing it at, not to mention the people around me. I always express this to people. You have to surround yourself with the people in your life with the hardest workers in the room, and you need to lead from the front. And that's what I just try to do. I'm so immersed in my family, which really and truly is my son. But my livelihood is this band, and has been from day one. This isn't a hobby. This is my life. And I'm also responsible for a lot of other people's lives. Because we have a crew now, and that's something that I make very, very poignant to everybody. Your crew, if you are a live musician, they are your anchor. They are what keeps you grounded and allows you to be able to do what it is you do. I can't stress the fact that, you know, we are in a place now in our career as a band where we have a staff of about 80 people on the road, and we're responsible not only for them, and there's a lot of lifers with us too, people that have been there for over 10 years plus. And we're responsible for their families as well and their livelihood. So it's a big responsibility.
Right. The stupid direction that I was going to take that one is, so there's not a Diamond Dave equivalent of Brent, where you go, there's three personas. There's the guy on stage, there's a normal family guy, and then there's the backstage guy. You don't have that third one.
No, and I kind of, the guy on stage is still me.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that I've always looked at, like people will ask me, like, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? And, you know, how do you decompress? Here's the thing about me. I lived in California from 2010 to 2016 because I do a lot of work out there. And so I got a house. It was a beautiful house, but I was never in it. I was always on the road. So I sold that house. I haven't owned a home since 2016. I live in hotels. I go rental car to rental car. But I'm constantly moving because I'm constantly networking for Shinedown. There's always another step. There's always another country to go to, another city to be explored. We're always, the rule of thumb is, at least for me, is I'm always 5 years ahead. So I'm trying to make sure that we're laying out the groundwork ahead of time, because communication is key in this industry also. There's a lot of moving parts. And for me, I don't do very well with downtime, but as I've gotten older, the place that I am the most at home, if I'm not on the road, is with my son.
Okay, well, down to two quick questions and I'm going to let you go. And the first one is, I said the words Diamond Dave, and you worked with Bob Marlette, who did an album for David Lee Roth. Did you ever pump Bob for David Lee Roth stories?
I've never pumped Bob for David Lee Roth stories. It's so interesting how the universe is real. Here recently, I've been seeing Bob's name pop up. And that guy, I'm just going to say it right now, that dude is, Bob Marlette, as a producer, songwriter, engineer, massively underrated.
Yes.
Like massively underrated. I mean, for me, you know, I remember him geeking out when I met him back in 2002 when we were basically recording our debut record, which is even crazier this year because on May 27th, it's the 20-year anniversary of our debut album, Leave a Whisper, this year. And I just remember him, I remember him geeking out that he got to work with Tony Iommi.
Yes.
And he also has some really interesting stories. He played, if I'm not mistaken, and because we have Google, I'm sure we can fact check this, but I'm trying to remember from memory. If I'm not mistaken, he played piano or synthesizer on Fast Car from Tracy Chapman.
I believe that is correct. That was his first big session. And
yeah,
one of those credits, you go, what? Okay.
Oh, dude, like amazing. Dude, if you look up Bob Marlette, to your viewers and your listeners and what have you, go and research this guy, because he has a, like, really, really tight with John 5, did a lot of work with him. But like just a plethora of different styles and different kinds of musicians.
Anyone who gets along with Rudy Sarzo and Ozzy, you know, is the real deal. Yeah,
100%. And he's got an interesting story about Andrew WK. Andrew WK's debut album, I believe Bob was in the running in the beginning to help him with that production-wise. I don't think that they ended up obviously being able to do it. And
yeah, John Fields, I think, did it.
Right. But Bob is like, he said, that guy just ahead of his time. Even when Bob was like, even when I met him, he was ahead of his time, because like the digital side of that sound, if you go back and you listen to, I think that record is called I Get Wet.
I Get Wet. Yeah.
Yeah. If you go back and listen to Andrew WK and that first record in 2023, that record is still crushing everything that came, you know, that came out after it. And that was in such a very early stage of digital, of what he was able to do and how they were able to create that record. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Paltrocast.